Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dreadbred. Welcome to the Space Monkey Mafia. This video will probably go up on YouTube for my dreaded hobbies content because it's been a while. What are we going to be doing tonight? We're going to be watching Warhammer, excuse me, the Warhammer AdeptiCon previews. We'll listen to this song too, I guess. Forgot to hit that, but it is online. Is live now. We're actually gonna wait because it's just their starting soon screen, and once that is over, and some lag. Stuff running that's not supposed to be running. No, everything is good. Like I said, once this is once they actually start, everything's good. Let's just pop along over here. Yep, see, it is not started yet. It is not started yet, chat. Not missing much. I have their chat turned off because I want to talk to you guys if you're interested. Playing my own music right now. Their stuff should be muted. Yes, their stuff is muted right now. On the starts, I will go over and turn off this music, and you know, we'll go from there. I've never done one of these. I don't know if I'll get hit with a copyright or anything like that. Hopefully not. I'm doing a react. Made my own little spin on it. It's been a while since I've actually been excited for Warhammer 40k. I got really excited in 8th, and then towards the 8th, at the end of 8th, I kind of died off, especially when 9th came out. I didn't like that they decided to do that 9th edition was going to be a prequel to 8th edition, and all the cool stuff that happened in 8th edition that I really liked kind of got skipped over and swept under the rug and said, that didn't really happen. That doesn't really matter. You know, the Minotaurs, you know, them getting wiped out by the Death Guard doesn't matter. You know, all of the really cool exiled Space Marine chapters coming out from the recess of deep space, the exile space, the void space, them coming out like the Carcharodons, the Astral Claws, and then the, like, I'm just mumbling over myself. It's been so long. Basically the other Space Marines not knowing if they're good or bad, and the Mechanicus like saying, "Ooh, they've got shiny stuff, but we don't know if we should actually be dealing with them or not. But let's just kind of make deals in the dark, see how that goes." Let us see. I don't want uplifting. Moonrise is battle, death from above. You know, some cool stuff happened in the. Like I said, it just got swept underneath the rug. And the 9th edition came out, and I kind of lost interest. Kind of lost interest for a bit. I have a pile of Warhammer stuff that I need to get back into and complete. I just got burnt out. I keep having ideas for my armies and stuff like that, but with ADD it's really hard for me to commit to one thing and then like, no, I want to start over because I don't like the color scheme or anything like that. I do have a color scheme that I do like, but I really want to get away from blue. I was using blue a lot, but you know, it is what it is. Just see, yeah, they are still going at it. Still starting soon. The stream is supposed to start at 11, so 3 more minutes. I'm not sure when the Warhammer 40k stuff is supposed to pop up. I'm waiting for the lion. I want the lion to show up. Everybody wants the lion to show up. You know, the lion is cool. So, did be neat for the lion to pop up and maybe fight Gilman for the throne. Because at one point, my lore is not very good with Warhammer 40k. I know a good solid chunk of it, but I don't know all of it. I didn't get involved in Warhammer until about 7th edition came out. I have the 7th edition starter set. That was my first set, but before that, the only real knowledge I have of Warhammer was from Space Marine 40k, the game. I kind of knew what Warhammer 40k was from the models and stuff, from like my hobbies, the hobby stores. Like I kind of knew that it was grim dark, but I really didn't understand everything. Like I knew about power armor and stuff like that, but I didn't really realize how many different factions and stuff there were at the time. And like I said, it wasn't until Warhammer or Space Marine the game came out that really got my interest in it. And then 7th edition, I really got interested in it. And then my interest kind of died off when I got treated like shit at my local hobby shop. They do that with everybody. Everybody to them is a thief or trying to jip them off or whatever. And they basically, when I bought the 7th edition box, they basically thought that I stole some type of coupon that they gave me because it wasn't signed, even though the guy had just given it to me. But I do, like I said, that was just my local hobby shop. I'm not going to shout them out because they suck. They suck really bad. The hobby shops where I live, there really are no good ones unless you're really into competitive like card games like Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon. But when it comes to role-playing stuff, I mean, yes, you can get the rule books or you can get some used rule books for cheaper from some of these places, but they really don't. They really don't care about that. They just want your money in cards and stuff, and they treat everybody like shit, even their regulars that they know. So, man, already. You just go over here, clicking on some stuff, and maybe hello, Gizmo. Welcome to the stream. I'm going to be showing off this preview of AdeptiCon for Warhammer. I really am a big Games Workshop fan, or I'm not going to say used to be. I just haven't done models and stuff for a while. I do love it. I just kind of fizzled out with the hobby aspect of it. Building and painting the models takes a lot of time to do, and I was starting to feel burned out, and I moved on to some other hobbies. And now I'm starting to get that hobby bug again, and I am hoping we get some good stuff in this preview. Frames. Let's see here. That is not good. It should not be dropping. I'm just constantly dropping frames. Sheet. Alright, looks like my frame drops have stopped. But I'm going to redo the intro. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dreadbread. I'm going to actually have to check the VOD because I did not realize how bad my frame drops were. It's pretty bad, but we're going to be showing off, doing a watch along. Oh, shit, it started.
For everything we're about to go through with everyone on the line, I'm buzzing at the chance to get to do it again.
It was really, really fun. So we've just had the preview for the people at the event. We had, as you say, 1,000 people, 1,000 Warhammer fans.
I wonder if there's going to be Space Hulk.
And some other people kind of round
Please,
the edges.
Space Hulk.
Really, really cool. Some awesome stuff.
I missed the last chance to get the last one.
Who are watching along on the stream,
Please.
all that stuff in just a few minutes. I can
Please,
see there's
Space
about
Hulk.
30,000 of you currently tuned in to watch
Mm-hmm.
us.
Given the fact that it's like 3 a.m. in some of our core demographic here of this for this show.
It's
Absolutely,
11 o'clock here, my
do
guy.
let us know where you're tuning in from, guys. It's about, I think, 3 or 4 in the morning over in the UK. It's still pretty late over here in the US as well. So.
It's pretty late in the US. We're here at Central Time. It's already past 10. Eddie here is probably still getting over the jet lag. You were in the UK just yesterday.
Jet lag is very nasty to get over.
Flight over. It was not without incident, but it's all good. We're
You
here now.
visited many cities on your way to Chicago.
Well, I can already see in the chat we've got loads of people. It's going flying by so fast. We've got the UK. There's some people, loads of the US, Denmark, Europe, China, all sorts of places. So the Shire I see in there as well. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We've got a really, really cool show. We've got loads of really fun
excited.
stuff. I'm excited to share it.
Hopefully,
if you guys
hopefully,
have got any theories or any things you're particularly looking forward to seeing, let us know in the chat. Some of them might come true.
Indeed, and see what you can get out of us in the chat, because there's all sorts of things we can talk about over the next bit.
Yeah, we might be able to answer some questions. The chat is going so fast at the moment.
You can barely hear
I might not be able to see your question, but we'll do our best if any kind of repeat questions.
I'm hoping for Space Hulk.
So Mike,
I'm also hoping for
in,
the Lion and some other Primarchs, maybe. Probably not. Probably just get the Lion, but Space Hulk I'm really, really excited about. Hope the Eldar get some new units.
All of us who come to
maybe bring back the Legion of the Damned.
Before I joined Games Workshop, it really inspired me into the sort of event side of the hobby. It inspired me to run events of my own. It inspired me.
I would like to go to an event, but I have no armies really painted up. Well, except for my Dark Angels one that I made long ago. But I have to base them at, apparently.
We wouldn't be lucky enough to have this community, and it's really writ large here at an event like AdeptiCon. If you've never had a chance to go, I recommend it. It doesn't matter where you are. There are people who come from all over the world to attend. And it's sort of the godfather of the independent event scene. AdeptiCon existed before them all. And so it's been great to see it grow over the years. And I think this is the 20th year that they've been doing it, 18th AdeptiCon. And
like I said,
are ringing
I would really love to go to one of these, but they always pan out when I can't go.
I really can't do it justice by sharing about it verbally. I have to encourage folks to take a look at the coverage over the next few weeks on Warcom as we post the various different images and whatnot. And if you've never made the journey yourselves to the Mecca that is AdeptiCon, make it one year. Come say hi to us. Eddie and I will be on stage, I'm sure.
It says their volume's really low. Hopefully it's not too low for you guys. If it is, please let me know.
It's getting close to the time that we should probably...
I think we should probably show them some stuff.
Absolutely.
All the good people that tuned in, they want it's stupid o'clock in the morning some places, so we should probably let them see some cool things. And we've got a pretty good one to open, so should we roll the first video?
Can't do anything about that ad that they throw under there. Ooh.
The state of the galaxy, the Dark Angels, the Arcs of Omen series has led to the brink.
What we gonna get? What we gonna get? What we gonna get? Get.
Abaddon has sent out the Arcs of Omen. Vashtor the Archifane is now at large, and Angron is on a rampage.
Yay!
And there's
Angry boy.
one character in the entire galaxy who could stand against Angron. That's the Lion.
Ooh.
Lionel Johnson is the Primarch of the Dark Angels, formerly the Dark Angels Legion, and now he is the returned Primarch of the Dark Angels chapter.
Is he gonna...
Returning Primarchs are a big deal. The return of Rabute Gilliman, that was an era-defining moment for the inhabitants of the 41st millennium and for fans of the 41st
Love
millennium.
that model.
It doesn't happen very often, and this is the second opportunity in my lifetime, certainly, to see a living Primarch return.
He's been deep in the rock for thousands of years. All is lost to chaos. But this is where the Lion appears. And this is where he makes his stand as a light in the dark, as a knight standing alone.
He grew up as a feral youth on a forested world full of monsters and then taken in by knights after he'd spent years hunting down creatures of chaos. And that's pretty much what he's gone back to doing. He's found half of the galaxy completely subsumed by darkness, warp storms, chaotic beasts, so he's just set back to work.
Is he going to pick a fight with Gilliman for the throne?
You'd imagine, with the Dark
Emperor
chapter, and woe betide anybody who finds themselves on the other side of the battlefield from them.
Definitely would paint this in traditional Heresy colors. That model. Of course, Heresy colors for his armor. Just seems right. When is this gonna drop? Find out tomorrow. Man. Could have given us like a timeline like white 2023.
So, the Lion has returned. A brand new Primarch has returned to Warhammer 40,000 to the 41st millennium. Some of you predicted it. Some of saw it coming.
Dalarak predicted it for years.
You know.
And is he brand new or is he brand old? I can't tell. He's been around.
So he is pretty old. So we saw some of the people in the chat there commenting that he looks quite old. He is 10,000 years old.
He is. He hasn't been sitting
He's been
comfortably in
asleep.
stasis for 10,000
Yeah,
years.
it's probably on like a stone slab as well. So
Yeah, it doesn't sound
that'll
very
do something
comfortable,
to
actually.
your
I don't
back.
want to talk about that, Eddie, at this point in my life.
Fair enough. Well, so let's have a look at the miniature then. So we've got some shots of it. Absolutely phenomenal miniature. Early contender, I think, for miniature of the year. One of the most anticipated Warhammer models I think we've ever had the pleasure to reveal.
Does it come with a helmeted
streams.
version
Every
too?
inch of this
Just because
model
I'm
is
really
just
bad at
dripping
painting
with
faces.
detail and iconography and just the raw, cool, gothic aesthetic of the Dark Angels.
It's been difficult for me to even fathom how we got to the point that it was designed in the way that it is, because it's stunning. And then nothing that I could have expected was actually fulfilled with it, because it was so much better than what I was imagining. And I gotta tell you, it was one of the better
he is in
kept
the
secrets of the studio.
traditional
I
armor.
could not
The
see
green
myself
underlines,
before, until I think a couple
underpainting
days
threw me
ago.
off.
So it's been amazing to see the community get excited and make all the wild calls and whatnot. And of course, there was a video of a lion earlier today.
Yes,
Could have been
that's
added.
what got me excited.
So loads of really lovely details to talk about on this miniature. So we'll go through some of the highlights. So he's got a sword. He's got a brand new sword. So
He does seem to have one.
This is not the Lion Sword. The Lion Sword is still with Cypher around the galaxy somewhere. At some point, maybe they'll meet again, but it's not this day. But he has another blade, which is more than capable of cleaving monsters in half.
I don't know about
he's
that
accompanied
sword.
by two Watchers in the Dark. These are the kind of shadowy forms that follow key Dark Angels characters around.
I really like the
and
model,
there is no
but
more significant
I don't know,
character
the
than
sword
Lion himself,
just
and they kind of whisper to him in the
doesn't
darkness,
seem epic enough.
about where he might best put his service to the Emperor and defeat the forces of
I
chaos.
do like the lion
Bryce
cloak
Oscar
he's got, the
there,
little
it looks
lion
like.
paw.
He does. He is carrying the Emperor's shield. So that is the
Ooh.
glorious golden Oromite shield carried by the Emperor and now carried by his son, in much the same way that Guilliman wields the Emperor's sword. The Emperor
Guilliman's a
possibly
punk.
gifted or maybe inherited the shield of the Emperor. So when he's fighting against the horrors of the galaxy, he can use the Emperor's shield to deflect the deadly blows that might even lay someone like him low. Other details on him there, you can see that the details on his armor are effectively
very
scaled
cool.
up, more
I really
ornate,
like
elaborate versions
the shoulder
of Space
pad,
Marine
the
power
pauldron.
armor. So he's definitely still
I wonder if
fundamentally
that's
Space
hand
Marine. He's a
painted
leader
or
of
if
the Space Marine
that's
Legion, and all the iconography of the Dark Angels in some capacity is kind of incorporated
actual
into
detail.
his armor.
I actually think it's fascinating with the paint job as well, that he's clearly got that green element of the Dark Angels, but there's sort of that original, sort of darker hue to the main armor plates as well going on.
I like that a lot. I didn't realize that
you
at
could
first.
certainly
I thought he
interpret
was
that
just
armor as
all
being
green.
black armor with a slightly green tinge to it.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. Obviously, the green of the Dark Angels comes from the Forests of Caliban. That's where that green color scheme comes from. And the black was kind of their original First Legion color. So the green of the Dark Angels Legion was incorporated when the Lion joined, basically. So it's a nice little touch that he's kind of got some of that hue into the paint scheme. I think we've got another shot of some more close-ups. So this might be my favourite thing actually about this. It's not my favourite thing about the kit, but there's so much cool stuff. But one of the cool things about it is that there are four
different heads.
head options for the Lion.
That is
so
awesome.
You can sort of choose how you want your Lion to
I really like the
represent,
cloaked
on
ones,
the battlefield. So
but
you can
the
have
open helm,
your unhelmeted head, so he's kind of there as the general of the forces, bellowing commands to his legion, his chapter.
Yes.
You can have the kind of hooded option, either with helmet or without, to have a much more mysterious kind of wandering knight errant sort of vibe.
The secrets of the Dark Angels.
Yeah, or you can go kind of full-on lion helm and have the winged helmet that's become synonymous with the Dark Angels over the years.
People are probably going to do
the kind
really
of
crazy and
absolute
awesome
icon of
conversions
the
with
Dark
this
Angels,
model.
writ in the helmet of the of their Primarch. So some really cool options. And the Lion is a complicated character, right? So he's got a really interesting relationship with the Imperium, with his brothers, with his own chapter.
Yes.
With
Chapter's
his
very
commanders
mysterious.
under him. So he is this kind of multifaceted
Some might be
interesting
traitors,
personality, and you can
but we don't talk about
you can
that.
kind of choose which of those you like and which ones you associate with, and make the model to fit.
You're already hinting at a few things about him. There are questions aplenty that even I have about the Arcs of Omen book itself. What is going on with the lion in the current?
Yes, what's he
so
been up
this
to?
model comes out
Who woke him up?
alongside Arcs of Omen Book 5, which is the culmination of the Arcs of Omen series. The book is called Arcs of Omen: The Lion, and it will chronicle the finale of the story of the Arcs of Omen, which will see a huge showdown effectively between the forces of Chaos and the forces of the Imperium. On the Imperial side, you will have the Lion alongside some of the Dark Angels chapter.
I
and
hope
some
the
of their
model's not
successors,
small. I
and
hope
you'll
he's
have Dante,
he's
and
a
you'll
big
have
boy.
some Blood Angels, so some of the
Not
angels,
the
basically, the Angels of Darkness
primary
will,
size.
will stand against the forces of Chaos. On the Chaos side, you've got Abaddon, you've got Vashtor, you've got Angron.
Angron!
So it's going to be a huge showdown, effectively.
Big angry boy.
So on the screen right now, you can see kind of how the Lion scales up against some of the other key models that you'll see him alongside. So they're against an Intercessor, so you can see quite a lot bigger than a standard Space Marine. And against Reboot Guilliman, he's the same scale. So he is a Primarch, they are
doesn't
brothers.
look the same scale.
Neither of them was known to be particularly larger than their brothers, so they are pretty much the same size. They're standard Primarch.
Everyday run-of-the-mill Primarch that you see around the corner on
he's
the usual
original and
Saturday
best,
mornings.
some would say, for the Lion.
Indeed, it's
Yeah,
true. His rock looks a little less tactical.
If anyone is going to stand on a rock, it's going to be the Lion.
It does seem like what he does is a standard
It's
approach
kind of
to
his
life.
jam, right?
Yes, his jam and his jelly.
Eddie, never without a good pun when it's needed.
Oh, I didn't
So
realize that was a rock.
this is the artwork that comes on the cover of Arcs of Omen Book 5.
I like that.
And
I like
you get
that a
kind of
lot.
close up on the lion there. You can see that he has aged basically. So as far as the narrative, the timeline is concerned, Guilliman has been in stasis for most of the last 10,000 years. So when he comes out, fresh-faced, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, maybe only a few centuries old, the lion has literally been alive for all 10,000 years. So that's
Yeah, he's
what
just
a
been
Primarch looks
asleep.
like.
Just a very long nap.
It's a really, really long cat nap.
Probably kept hitting the snooze button.
He does have that effect in the miniature as well. It's one of the things we saw people commenting on. That he looks older, and the reality is, for those that didn't pick it up earlier, he is indeed quite a bit older.
He's pretty old. Yeah, he's pretty old. But he does have that kind of like ancient, venerable veteran knight errant sort of thing. So you can imagine that kind of character.
He's just missing
and this is
Excalibur.
what happens in the Arcs of Omen basically is that he is wandering through the Imperium Nihilus, taking on monster hunting, basically, like picking up where he left off when he was a Knight of Caliban.
His primary calling.
Yeah, wandering out into the dark forests to take down the monsters that haunt the darkness.
And we saw that in his quote, his focus being on teaching them to fear the darkness in which they dwell.
Yeah. Here he is
I love
alongside
that quote.
Dark Angel's army, and you can kind of see
big
how
boy.
he scales versus some of the other units. So, you know, he's looks pretty cool next to Redemptor Dreadnoughts and
I just
Intercessor units.
don't
and
like the
tanks.
sword. The sword just doesn't do
And his
justice
iconography and
for
colour
me.
scheme obviously kind of has a little bit of all of the bits.
Go
of Dark
away,
Angels. So if you want to
AirPods.
paint him, you can certainly
We're
add
not
some bone
interested.
colour, some black colour, some
You're
green,
heresy. Go
and
away.
Have him as the absolute
Shoo.
centerpiece of a Dark Angel collection.
I'd be lying if I say I can't wait to see the Warhammer community post with all the different various guest authors painting.
Yeah, I think this is
variations
going to
of
be a
the line.
painter's treat. It's going to be a very, very cool model to paint up. There are some shots from Arcs of Omen Book 5. So you can see here the Dark Angels and the Blood Angels fighting against the forces of
Big stinky
forces of
guy in the
Chaos,
back.
Demons of Nurgle in this instance. One
Stinky
of the
boys.
things that there's some really, really cool stories in the last episode of the Arcs of Omen. So I don't want to spoil it because it's got some absolute huge twists and turns. Even for those who've followed Warhammer 40,000 for a long time, there's some really nice payoffs to some very, very long-running arcs.
It is all I can do not to try and prod you to tell them more about it, because Eddie's given me a bit of a rundown, and it's been hard for me to not just want to kibitz about it with every single Warhammer fan that I can come across now.
It's very, very cool. So if you like the lore and the narrative of Warhammer 40,000, if you've been following it for a long time, if you're a fan of the First Legion, which I am, I've got a Fallen Angels collection myself.
Traders.
It's funny
so,
though,
you know,
that's
I've
actually
got
the
mixed
first
feelings about the Lion, but he
first
is the
army
best
I
one.
have is Dark Angels.
I can't lie with that.
I got
No, we have
into
more to
the
talk
Warhammer
about. This
40K.
We do, we
Is
should
this the
probably-
line
we should-
preview?
Seventh
Just talk about the
edition.
line for the next hour, I think.
The
right?
last
The
thing though
7th
to say
edition
about
box
this
set.
is
Whoa.
that in the Arcs of Omen Book 5, the Lion will fight Angron. So
I want
we have a
that art.
situation,
I
two
really do.
brand new miniatures, two new Primarchs, both returned to the 41st millennium. They will have a
Yes.
showdown in Book 5 of the Arcs of Omen.
I'm
So,
ordering this poster.
yeah.
Or behind me.
If you
So we got
if
Abaddon,
you are a Lion fan
Angron,
or a Angron fan, please let us know in the chat
Robot Man,
who you
the Tau,
were rooting for in
and
that particular
Yeah,
battle.
can we do
The
a
Lion.
poll there in the chat?
I mean, maybe.
We might be able to do
we'll
a
have
poll.
go.
Who should win or who will win?
Who will win?
Angron.
It has already been written, so you don't get to change it. But you can certainly
Yeah, you can
loudly.
guess what you want.
Oh,
to have.
I bet I
That's
know
not
who
it,
wins.
I believe. We've
No,
got more stuff to show
There's
you.
more to talk
It's only
about.
one model.
In
Just
fact,
one model.
I think we told everyone here it was the biggest Warhammer preview we'd ever done. I think we,
In terms of the amount of stuff.
in terms of
in
the
it,
amount
yeah,
of stuff,
we do.
it would be an
Let's get
injustice
to it then.
to serve the same treatment.
Show us the
So
goodies.
we
Show
are
us the
leaving
goods.
41st Millennium for a little bit, and we are going to jump into the mortal. Oh, it's Heresy first. So we are going to jump to
Ooh.
the Horus Heresy.
Yay!
Yeah, let's roll video.
Let's see what we've got.
I'm Andy Hall. I work on the Horus Heresy team in the Warhammer studio.
Siege of
The setting
Cthonia.
for the Siege of Cthonia book
Oh,
is
Cthonia.
the planet of Cthonia itself, which is the homeworld of the Sons of Horus. It's actually the homeworld of the Warmaster Horus. As the Warmaster's fleets were advancing on Terra, a small detachment, calling themselves the True Sons of Cthonia, decide to peel away from the fleets and retake Cthonia in the interests of
Ooh.
the honour of their culture.
That's cool. I'm very, very far behind on the Horus
So the book
Heresy.
opens up with a really
books
big, extensive
and lore.
narrative of the actual Cthonia campaign itself. Then we go into a section that sums up what all of the big factions
Big
within
stabbing
the Horus
robot.
Heresy are doing at this point in the war. We also have some new core scenarios for the game. So if you wish to play through the events described in the narrative, you've got some special scenarios that are themed around the Siege of Cthonia. We gave
Ooh.
people a basic way of doing Zone Mortalis games in White Dwarf when the new edition came out, and this takes that and expands it into a full system. So full Zone Mortalis scenarios and system in this book. It's also got a really interesting section
That's
on
awesome.
Space Marine Inductii. We've got a new type of
Ooh.
consul, which is called a Decorium. We have the Infernus Abomination. And then the last thing in the book, there's a number of special characters and special models that you can take. There's the two main leaders, the two main special characters, Garrus, Evander for the Imperial Fists, and Varanash Haddon for the Sons of Horus. We've got models coming out for those, rules for them in here.
Yes, tell us
This
more.
is the first of the campaigns of the Age of Darkness series, and we intend to keep going with these. One really important thing to say about this book is it's designed to appeal to all Horus Heresy players.
New models?
It's also telling a really important part of the overall story, and it's also giving people rules and scenarios and all the rest of it that will appeal to everybody.
Sweet. Sweet, sweet, sweet.
So that is a brand new narrative expansion book for the Horus Heresy.
Black books are back.
Yeah, so one of the things that was a huge hit with the first edition of the Horus Heresy were the black books. That was basically the main way that you engaged with the game, and they had loads of really rich lore.
Never played the
and
original
background
Horus
and maps
Heresy.
and all sorts of really cool stuff. And
But
it's
I'm
been a
building
year
a
since
Night
we've had,
Lord's Horus
Then
Heresy
one of the
army.
biggest questions we see on a regular basis is when are the big black campaign books coming back for the Horus Heresy? And here
Yeah,
we
so
are.
this book is the
Squeaky,
first
squeaky.
of that ilk, and it's
Background
absolutely
noise, guys.
jam-packed with stuff.
Squeaky,
We heard
squeaky.
from Andy Hoare there a few of the details about what's going to be in it. So there will be brand new miniatures, obviously accompanying the new campaign book. But maybe more excitingly, actually, is this brings new ways to play. So there is a full Zone Mortalis set of rules. That's a hugely popular way to play Horus Heresy.
Yep.
Don't know
Obviously,
what that is.
Loads of the best bits of
Like I said, I've
the
never
lore
played
of the Horus Heresy of like
Original
Building
Horus
the Vengeful
Heresy,
Spirit
and
or
I have
various
yet to
different
play
flagships and Gloriana ships and the
the
battles that happen on
new
board
version,
them.
2.0.
This has got new ways to play on the tabletop, on Horus's homeworld, on Cthonia itself.
That's cool.
And the characters that kind of lead those battles will be getting new miniatures, alongside
Ooh,
lots of other
some
new
new
miniatures
miniatures.
that these new
Yay.
campaign books herald. So it's a really exciting time for the Horus Heresy. It's like the next step. We've had the edition, we've had the kind of base level, and now this is diving into the detail.
It's pretty exciting to hear Andy talk about it as well. Even when he's not on a recording, there's a certain driving passion that exists there for Warhammer and for the brand and for the game that it is sort of hard to rival, and it's magical to see amongst the folks who are actually designing and building the product. And also to hear him talk about it as, in his own words, inside of our regular meetings, a historical war game in a sense, and that we view the Heresy itself as a historical moment in the history of Warhammer.
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting thing about the Horus Heresy, which is that when people get really into it, they want like authenticity.
Sorry, I was
right?
just
So, like,
checking to
people
make
tend
sure
to
their
go,
volume was
I want
okay.
this bit of the lore. I read this story. It was really cool. I want the faction, the specific company or chapter that took part in that battle. And these campaign books basically go, here is a bunch of really cool stuff that happened. And each of those moments, each of those battles gives you an opportunity to kind of go, that chapter was cool, I want that drop force, or I want that assault company, or
Specifically.
this one. Yeah, yeah.
Well, which would you be?
And
Would you be a Son of Horus or an Imperial Fist in this particular
Oh,
one?
wait, so in this one, I think the Imperial Fists are pretty cool.
I mean, I'm a big fan of Imperial Fist. Also, there's sort of like a...
Yes, the
flex-
Sons
But
of
then-
Dorne.
Sons of Hor- I mean, it is Horus' Heresy, right? It's his game. So
It's his game. So he has enough spotlight. We can root for
he has,
the Fists for
yeah,
a
that's
change.
fair.
So one of the other things too is if you ever happen to see some photos, if you're ever at one of the events we're at, we actually have a 64 square foot Horus Heresy Isfahan Massacre battlefield.
Man, I
with
would love to see that.
1,000, I think at this point, miniatures recreating the whole
Oh,
experience. and
man.
like scene for scene, shot for shot, pieces
Pretty
of
cool.
cover art from the Heresy. So I'm kind of a big old Heresy historical nerd
Nice.
myself.
Uh,
But it's exciting to see.
I'm
and
gonna
hear that
change my
all
answer.
over.
actually,
One
'cause I just
day
remembered a
I'm
cool
gonna
thing
have
about
to
this
go
book
to
that we haven't talked
AdeptiCon.
about.
Now you're not going to be Imperial.
So
Fist
one
anymore.
of the things that these books do is they let you, they give you a bit more of the kind of rich tapestry of the Heresy. And what we know is that some of the legions and chapters didn't fall completely, or they had loyalist elements in them. So one of the things that's quite interesting in this book is that you get some loyalist elements of the Thousand Sons.
That
legion
is neat.
joined
I do
alongside
like.
the Imperial
Oh,
Fist.
Thousand Sons.
So
Really?
I thought he was gonna say-
So I'm going to pick them. So I like the Thousand Sons.
So
They're like one of my choices.
You're a fan of the small
So-
contingent of loyalist Thousand
That's
Sons.
exactly it. I was
All
I'm
right.
a fan of this.
That's a
Yeah.
deep cut. One that's also
Absolutely,
quite a sneak peek
absolutely.
for those who are paying
Yeah.
attention.
That is
Cool.
awesome.
Okay, so that's Horus Heresy. Really cool. This book is going to be accompanied by loads and loads of new stuff. Dome Mortalis
Ooh.
rules, brand new miniatures, all sorts of cool things. We are now going to jump to the mortal realms, where something ancient and prehistoric is.
It's a good cut to jump from the
Mortal
immortal
Realms I'm not
legions at the
too
base,
familiar
making
with.
them die constantly in the Horus Heresy into the
I
immortal
know a
realms.
little bit about Warhammer
Flawless segue.
Fantasy. Oh god, that's like ooh, lizardmen. Hell yeah. I do like that faction though. Bam, bam, bam. Bam, bam, bam. Bam, bam, bam. Dinosaurs. Oh, I like that big lizard thing. I mean, those guys are big lizards, but the other ground lizard. Oh, hell yeah! Yes. Please let those be plastic, not resin. I don't like working with resin because I'm not very good with it. Yes, old frogman. Are they gonna bring back heroes? Because they killed off all their heroes. Ooh, the Seraphon, yes. They literally did the thing in D&D. Oh,
So that is
rocks
the
fall out of the
rest
sky and
of
you,
the
the whole party
Seraphon
dies.
forces. We'd always seen some new models on their way at some previous previews, but this
That was
is
awesome.
the
I really
rest of
liked
the
it.
range, and effectively the Seraphon have now been fleshed out to be one of the best-looking armies in Age of Sigmar.
They
feel
are
like a
awesome,
12-year-old
yes.
man. I want to name all of them some form of Saurus. I want to talk about how much of
Thumposaurus.
girls these particular models are. I am excited about this.
Chadosaurus.
As someone who's relatively new to Age of Sigmar. This is the
Yetasaurus.
army that got me into it.
Yep.
To begin with, and I am over the moon excited about what these miniatures mean for my, well, maybe not
My
for
pocket's
wallet,
not gonna be
but getting
happy.
that part. I'm just excited to collect them personally.
Well, so Lizardmen was my first army when I started playing Warhammer.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So I've got a definite soft spot for
Kindred
these guys.
spirits there.
Absolutely. So these are incredible models.
Guy
So
with the
this
drumsticks
is
back
Agrodon
in the
Lancer
back.
unit you can see on screen at the moment.
Above me.
This effectively
Like that.
replaces the Cold One Riders that we currently have in the Lizardmen range. They are significantly bigger than the current heavy cavalry of the Seraphon. This is a very, very hard-hitting unit. They are elite Saurus riding on the back of fairly
I wouldn't paint my
large,
guys blue though.
angry
Just because, like I
reptilian
said,
cavalry.
too many. I got too
They
many blue
are a
models.
grinding force in close combat.
Are they
So,
reptilian or are they more like avian?
um,
cavalry?
I mean, so that they are effectively the dreams of frogs from another dimension. So I think the evolutionary tree probably doesn't really apply.
That's a really
fully.
good point.
Um,
Dinosaur monster.
H.P.
heroes was
Lovecraft's
amazing.
Absolutely, but
frogs
the models
evolved
are
into
incredible.
lizards.
I think, if you are a painter, the Seraphon have leaped up the list of armies that would be a treat, because not only do you get to play with incredible color schemes for them, but the new miniatures are so detailed and so
Oh, I love that.
wonderful. This is an alternate color scheme for the Agrodon
Yes,
Lancer.
the red.
There's some really, really nice new color schemes actually in the Seraphon Battle Tome that's on its way.
Ooh,
One
might
of
have
the
to
things
pick that up.
the studio have basically done is gone, you can paint them in much more varied colours. We've shown that in much more varied ways than maybe
because they've always been like blue, except for
one of the things that's happening
yes,
in the
the
Mortal
white
Realms
is awesome.
effectively is that the Seraphon are kind of becoming one with the realm they're in. So if they're in the realm of fire, they get that kind of brimstone scales or something. If they're in the realm of life, they're like flushed with life energy, and you can kind of extrapolate that into the various different realms. So if you want to kind of make your
painting the white is very hard,
and place them somewhere in the Mortal Realms and really ground them, you can, or you can kind of lean into their classic aesthetic. And what you see here actually is a throwback with that colour scheme to a very old concept of blessed by the old ones. So
yes, there was one guy who was like Conan the Barbarian,
spawned,
and he yeeted many Skaven.
They would be seen as one of the old ones had intervened and gone, this person is marked for greatness. So they would be marked out as champion, given the best weapons and war gear. They'd be big.
Oh, his tail's going through the saddle.
And that's what you're seeing there in the Scar Veteran on Agrodon. This is a separate kit from the other unit, and again, that is a big. You don't quite get the scale of it from that, but you can kind of get a sense of it from the base. That is about the size of a Dracoth. That is a big old monster.
Massive space dinosaur, and I love your point there about the diversity.
I love these guys too.
Seraphon, that they, depending upon the realm that they're in, there's all that duality of the starfaring, the star
smash,
as well as the ones that are actually more in tune with and more sort of corporeal within the realms that they've chosen. It's a fascinating duality that the faction provides you to sort of play it in a wide variety of different ways, both thematically and in gameplay terms.
And that's still true in the new battle and the new lore. And one of the reasons we're seeing
the old models of these guys weren't too smart, so their weapons were usually chained to their hands because they would drop them.
Has effectively shaken the foundations of
but they're not in this one, which is interesting.
Kind of wave of bestial energy has woken up all these kind of ancient eggs that were in different pockets of the ziggurats.
Sleepy dinos.
Yeah, and they were like, oh, I didn't know we had all these eggs. They've woken up. On screen at the moment, there's a couple of units of Croxigor. There is one new Croxigor kit coming, and it makes 2 different units. You can make your standard Croxigor, which are still hulking, enormous reptilian killers, but you can make this brand new unit, which are called Croxigor Warspawned, and these are built and live for battle. So whereas a normal Croxigor,
I'm not sure about that one.
Might help the skinks.
I do like the bloody
heavy loads around. These guys want none of that. They are just angry, massive crocodiles that just want to rip into enemy units.
Angry, massive, heroic saviors of the mortal realms.
Sure.
Crocodiles.
I mean, they're sort of heroic, so they're about as chaotic and destructive as you can be while still being on Team Order.
Absolutely. Still good guys.
And here's a shot of the
big lizard
whole
thing in the middle,
range,
the skinks.
It all comes together, and you get a sense now of all those new units that we've seen,
Dogosaurus,
and how they kind of come together to make just an incredible looking faction. So everything about the Seraphon army, every new kit, I think is a winner. They're just such a lovely looking army.
They needed new stuff really badly.
There is of course a battle tome on the way. We can now show you the cover featuring, as it does, an Agrodon Lancer champion. Brand new battle tome obviously brings with it all the new rules you'll need to play with the Seraphon. Some of the existing kits still stick around, so things like the Stegodons, the Carnosaur, most of the big monsters that are relatively recent kits that are still really nice stick around. But all of those new things we've seen are added to it as well. So it's a pretty
new
big
hero units, please.
The number of war scrolls you get to choose from.
Yeah, it really feels like it's fit properly.
Because you guys killed all the heroes.
Yeah.
Please,
new
heroes.
A bunch of clever girls there in those units.
The first place you will be able to get hold of the new Seraphon and the new battle tome is an army box, which is on its way fairly soon. And inside this box, you will get
show us the goodies.
These units.
Yes.
So the battle tome, 2
big
units
fat
of
frogman,
Raptidons, the Slanmaid Priest, and a unit of Saurus, and then that will be followed swiftly afterwards by the release of all the rest of the Seraphon models that we've seen.
But I bet it's going to cost a pretty penny with the new price increases. Damn. Is
that pretty cool?
Space all time.
I think we have a bunch of other things to cover for
Age of Sigmar. We were
about
halfway through Age of Sigmar.
Only halfway.
So there's loads of cool stuff.
Only half. They only showed off.
We have the Seraphon coming soon. What else do we have before we get to the Seraphon?
Let's have a look at the video and see what.
A new era of death. Ooh, undead, yes. Or is it going to be ghosts? Oh, it's these guys. A Mason of Bone. Another vampire. An outcast of the night. You can tell that model was made for Crest City. I want more Soulblight Gravelords in the... More vampires, please. The vampire faction, I feel like, has gotten yeeted. They too had all their leaders, like, just die off.
So,
I really gotta say, before we even talk about those...
In hero units, I mean.
Marketing studio, the Warhammer studios that put together the vibe and the theme of these videos never gets enough credit. It's pretty amazing. I'm always entertained by it. But tell us about these models.
Yeah, so we've got two new heroes coming for Grand Alliance Death and 2 new battle tomes accompanying them. So we have the Soulblight Gravelords and a new vampire, a named vampire hero, and the Ossiarch Bone Reapers and a new generic hero that they can add into their forces. Yep. So I think we've got some pictures of the models.
Generic hero?
Bring up on screen and have a look.
And you should talk about the Ossiarch first, but I love the way you describe that vampire model.
They're both really, really cool. So this is the Mortisan Ossifactor.
I don't know.
This is
not my cup of tea.
A mage who can construct units, and
it looks kind of cartoony to me.
The
bit too cartoony.
Is that they build the biggest, largest,
bit
most
too comical.
Units. So
I mean, I do like that his head is a giant hand. That's kind of funny. But
make them
I
a
don't
little
know.
bit more durable, or you can make them a little bit better at killing stuff. So if you've gone for an elite, or you've gone for a kind of monster-heavy Ossiarch force, this is probably the kind of hero you put into it to bolster it.
Makes
also,
sense.
just a really nice model.
Been mixed
lots of kind of cool
on this
effects and
new.
Stuff. So if you're looking for a painting project on
this
a
new
small
faction.
scale, that would lend itself pretty well to that. There is a new battle tome. It has a brand new cover. Looks very cool. And
some of the models are neat, but they just.
The Mortarch,
to me, there are a lot of hit and miss.
Rules in this battle tome as well. The current Bone Reapers battle tome launched with the last edition of Age of Sigmar, and this brings it into the brand new edition, along with lots of all the new rules that other battle tomes recently have got. So it kind of updates it across the board and makes them kind of compete really in the current edition.
Makes sense to me. Tell me about this vampire.
Okay, well, we'll jump to the vampire in a second. So this is Ivya Volga, and she is a outcast of her house. She
definitely
wandering,
has the
lone monster
Cursed
hunter,
City vibe.
She wanders out into the wild places of the mortal realms. She finds monsters. She chops their heads off and she drinks their blood. So the other vampires are sort of like not 100% on board with her, but she's still a vampire. She's still part of the family when push comes to shove.
She's that one cousin you don't talk about.
She is accompanied by a swarm of bats, which she uses to kind of swamp enemy units and monsters to help her kind of even the odds in close combat. But what's quite fun about her, I guess, is that you've got this kind of crux of lots of different, almost kind of fairy tale elements pulled together into a character. But it's a vampire, right? So it's a very dark Warhammery take on a very kind of classic European fairy tale sort of vibe.
It's the vampire's lead of Into the Woods. It makes sense. It's an interesting and fascinating thematic element. And it seems like both of these characters are helping drive.
Maybe it's the way that it's painted, but
aesthetics.
Yeah.
Not very spooky or dark
but
looking
both of
to
them
me.
give you a sort of direction,
Almost too bright.
So she's obviously got wolf elements to her, so you can lean into that kind of dire wolfy kind of vibe. Soulblight Gravelords again, actually got one of the last battle tomes of the last edition, which meant that they didn't get lots of the cool things that lots of other armies got with the latest edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. This battle tome brings
good
a bang
stuff.
update. It also incorporates other units we've seen added in since the last battle tome was added, including things like the vampire unit we saw in the last edition, the last box set for Warcry. So it actually has quite a lot more to it than even the current Soulblight Gravelords book.
I don't know what they got last time, like I said. I don't really know much about Age of Sigmar.
Huge hit. One of the most popular armies now in Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and this book brings them bang up to date with loads of cool stuff that your army can now do.
Amazing.
I do like the.
But that's not it. You've got even
that
more.
model in the middle.
I feel like no one would have predicted that this was going to be an Age of Sigmar set.
Yeah, I mean, they've been spoiled, and here's something.
Let off with a line, and now it's all about the mortal realms.
Yeah. Well, let's see what else we got.
Ooh. Oh.
I don't remember taking the coin Malleus. But here we are, trudging through the mud to bring Sigmar's light to the realms.
Nah, these. Hard pass. Hard pass on those models. They're not very interested looking.
So, Cities of Sigmar, that is the new infantry that is on its way for the Free Peoples, basically Sigmar's mortal followers. So, just to set your expectations a little bit, we are still a good few months away from the release of this army in full, but we wanted to kind of keep you updated as to where the project was getting to. We've kind of been following the Cities of Sigmar project as it develops, and now we've got the first kind of painted miniatures to show you.
I really don't like them.
Warriors from the mortal infantry units of Sigmar. They are effectively, if you imagine that these people have to face flying sharks and huge uruks and vampires and monsters and pretty much...
So they're the human equivalent of Croxigors then?
Yeah, well, not really. If you're looking for the absolute underdog of the Mortal Realms...
They are
the they are,
human shield
given
go
a rusty
team.
shield, not matching weaponry, a hat that just about fits, and then kind of booted out en masse into the realms on great big crusades, given a pat on the back, and they have to go and found a city somewhere in the Mortal Realms. So they are the plucky underdogs of the Mortal Realms.
It's good to actually see some interesting models that are basically the opposite end of the spectrum of that sort of often wild and crazy and monstrous element and aesthetic that you see a lot of.
Even on the good guys'
side,
right?
They could have done that a little bit better, in my opinion.
Point of view characters almost that we've kind of followed, and what this army basically does is it gives you the base level. It gives you like, what do the humans look like? What are they up to in the Mortal Realms? We'll have lots more stuff for the Cities of Sigmar.
They don't look too good to me.
Coming weeks and months as we kind of approach the release. This is a piece of artwork from the upcoming Battle Tome, and what this does, which is quite cool, it gives you a sense of some of the sub-factions that are covered within the new Battle Tome.
The different sigils of the various cities.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the centre there, you've got Sigmar sigil, the 12-pointed star, but round the edge, you've got some symbols of cities that might be familiar if you're up to date on your current Age of Sigmar lore.
I do not know anything about Age of Sigmar.
You have a sense of the different corners of the Mortal Realms that the Battle Tome and the armies will cover.
And you said Sigmar, Cities of Sigmar are still a little ways off. What can it look like between now and then?
So, in terms of the roadmap for Warhammer Age of Sigmar, we have Blades of Khorne and Head Knights of Slaanesh are available to pre-order just now, so they are days away from being in people's hands. Very soon after, we get 2 Death Battle Tomes, so the Ossiarch Bone Reapers and the Soulblight Gravelords are hot on their heels. And then we have Mystery Book 1 in summer. We're not going to tell you what that is just yet, but it's going to be very cool and exciting, so we'll tune in for future previews to find out what that is. We also have Seraphon alongside their
Dino Bros.
They're going to land in summer, as will the latest General's Handbook. And then in autumn, we have Mystery Book 2, which I'm not going to tell you about today.
Why not?
Just the worst, Eddie.
I am the worst.
Teasing us constantly.
It's true. It's all true. And then Cities of Sigmar will be with us before the end of the year. So we'll keep you up to date. We'll give you lots more information about the Cities of Sigmar. But whether it's Seraphon, Cities of Sigmar, or any of those other battle tomes that are on the way, it is a pretty exciting few months, actually.
I mean, you've only told us up to autumn. Who knows what the winter could bring?
Who knows what the winter could bring?
Autumn, you mean fall?
We covered a lot of Sigmar. We took a detour from the 41st Millennium. I feel like we should go back there for at least
We can go there for a little bit. Yeah, see what happens.
There is no autumn. There is only fall. Squats. Beastmen. New kill team.
Then we've got to get out of here. The Hulk's going to blow. Not until
Space
we find
Hulk.
the Iron King. Quick, search through the stasis chambers. Beastmen! Get to the escape pods. The ancestors are watching.
I'm very indifferent about the new squats. But these guys are cool. Yeah, it's Kill Team box set. Damn, I just want the baseman.
I'm a huge fan of Kill Team, and these are 2 amazing kill teams. And we're nearing the end of the story of Gallo Dark.
Yeah, so this is Gallo Fall, which gives you a hint
I wonder if
about
they're going to have anything for
what might be occurring
Necromunda.
in the narrative. This is the last installment in the current season of Kill Team, which is the Into the Dark season where we're inside spaceships. And the reason this is the end of the season of this is that the Gallo Dark, the Space Hulk we've been fighting over for the past year, is crashing. It is crashing into a planet. And this last
Seems inappropriate. Warhammer 40,000 sort
absolutely
of an outcome.
all the best bits of it blow up. That's
I
kind of
really
how it
like the
works
art for the Beastmen.
and
I like the
this
4 eyes. It's
Space
neat.
Hulk
Or
is
the 3
crashing into
eyes.
a planet, and this last installment is basically the last 5 minutes of a really cool action film where your kill teams have to get to the escape pods and get out of dodge before the spaceship crashes into a planet and is obliterated.
I gotta tell you, the Votan team has all the hallmarks of a great action film in terms of how they're equipped as well. My favorite being probably the minigun, the high-las rotary cannon, to be precise. What about yours? What's your favorite?
So my favorite thing in the Leagues of Votan half is that there's one of the characters who basically come with knuckle dusters to a space fight. So they know they're going to board a spaceship. They don't know what horrors could await them. They have access to the full range of the Leagues of Votan equipment, you know, railguns, rifles, all sorts of cool stuff. And this guy has decided he's going to go with the knuckle dusters.
I mean, they're like laser space.
They are like
knuckle
laser
dusters,
knuckle
to be clear.
dusters, but even so.
I mean, when in doubt, punch it. Right?
Yes, when in doubt, punch it, especially the doors.
The Felgor Ravagers, which are a Beastmen warband. But let's take a look at some of these Leagues of Votan in a little bit more detail. So it's based on the current plastic kit for the kin, which is already a really flexible kit with loads of different head options and weapon options. And much like we've seen with lots of the other kill teams, you have a new sprue that expands the set and effectively allows you to make your models into specialists within kill team. I think it's one of the better upgrade kits because it adds onto a very recent kit, and the kit was already pretty good, right? The Leagues of Votan kit was a flexible kit.
And of course, you get everything you need in the launch box.
I don't like them.
It's not as if you're missing one of the components when you purchase it. But it really is a robust kit in terms of what it adds. Of course, we've got those space laser knuckle dusters, which I'm affectionate.
It's probably got a better name than that. But
yeah, I mean, I'm not a lore writer here. We get that. And do we have the rest of the pictures there?
A Rocky
well?
Balboa.
Yeah, there's that. There's the minigun. That's the one I want. Plus, what better inside of a spaceship than sort of a jump pack, right?
Yeah, you got a jump pack too, which is pretty cool. I like the Ironkin, who's got the kind of the tech assistant, who's got a kind of data pad there, which is guiding them through the ship.
Yeah, but a reminder that the Ironkin are no different in the eyes of the kin than any other member of their race.
They are an equal opportunities employer.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
clones and robots.
Up against them
Heresy.
with the Felgor Ravagers.
Yes.
So this is a really exciting kit. We haven't really seen Beastmen in Warhammer 40,000 properly for a long time. We saw a few of them pop up in Blackstone Fortress, but they were definitely like the side thing rather than the main event.
I mean, these are Emperor worshipping Beastmen, right?
I don't think so, though. There's a lot of chaos spikes on these guys. This is a brand new kit.
Could worship the Emperor.
Flexible, so
you
much
don't know.
like lots of the other kill team kits we've seen, the bespoke kill team kits, you can build them in loads of different ways. There's different options for weapons and heads, and there's interchangeability between them. Each one is a specialist, so it's very definitely a combat-focused kill team. But you've got some slightly stealthy ones. You've got some magic-y ones. You've got some with extra equipment like smoke grenades and gas grenades. You've got some with bionic bits, some that like charging and ramming stuff. So if you're looking for an aggressive kill team, it gives you some options. And
probably use those guys for Necromunda too.
Like the Recruit and the Eldar, the level of detail on those kits is really, really lovely. So,
and the detail extends to the terrain as well. You can see we've got one of the last expansions to the set. We've got a bunch of coward pods that you can jump into to get away from the trouble that's facing you. It's kind of an amazing set to finish off that sort of well-rounded collection.
People are going to build
medical
amazing
bay,
things with this
cool,
stuff
some
too.
stasis pods.
Again, another form of coward pod. I get it. This is a sort of a theme that's running on here, but Beastmen kind of have that vibe to them on occasion.
I think what I really like about it is it's
Beastmen
got
are
a feel
cowards.
of,
They fight to the death.
It's got a feel of like a really old school Warhammer set because you've basically got dwarves fighting beastmen, right? Yeah. But they've put them in space in a spaceship, and they've all got like laser guns and chainsaws and stuff.
So when are we going to get space skaven?
Knuckle dusters. So it just feels really, really Warhammer at the same time as being completely science fiction.
And once again, this whole Hulk that you've been fighting over for all these months is crashing.
It is crashing, yeah. So the climactic final installment, the current season of Kill Team, 2 very, very fun kill teams to expand it.
I bet it's going to crash on the planet, and then you have to fight over the
I'm
wreckage.
excited too, not to like give another shout out to AdeptiCon, but right over there in the other room, we've got literally what, like a 100+ player event of nothing but Into the Dark terrain and everything else happening tomorrow and the next day. So a lot of excitement around the end of the season of Into the Dark, but also it's still kind of alive and kicking with people playing in it all over the world right now.
Yeah, yeah. And Into the Dark as a way to play won't go away. That's like your inside kill team, so it gives a very different feel from playing kill team. You have ruins and things. It's a very claustrophobic, close quarters thing. And both those kill teams actually, Leagues of Votan, very durable, lots of very dangerous short-range weaponry, and the Beastmen team, very good close combat. You'd imagine. I haven't seen the stats in huge detail, but Beastmen
pretty good.
Notoriously hard to kill.
Let's not forget that in Kill Team, all these teams are considered to be elites in a sense, right? These are not your run-of-the-mill dregs. These are sort of the best going on.
Yeah.
You know, especially difficult
The best
special
of wars.
operations kind of. Yeah, the best of wars. Bravo, well done, Eddie. Excellent joke. I love it. Anyway, what do we have next? Well, we've above the world and crashing into it to under the world.
Necromunda. Maybe? Nope. Fight through the warped caverns and claim the arcane palace of the world. Something. You choose your fighters. Old man with rock. Weird thing with lots of arms. Glory awaits. Yay! Slaughter them with glory.
I'm super excited. It's a bunch of Tzeentch models that looks like they really took the
Tzeentch
full
models
run
are
of what
always
happens when you really followed Tzeentch as far as it can go. Tell us about this, Eddie.
So this is a brand new season of Warhammer Underworlds, and it brings with it a new Stormcast warband, which are a magic warband, and
Levitating rocks and all.
on the other side is a Tzeentchian warband, which has a disciple of one of the Gaunt Summoners of Tzeentch, the most powerful sorcerer, so somebody who's been tutored by one of Tzeentch's main
I'm pretty sure
followers,
that guy's
basically,
still sane.
and a gaggle of basically bits of wild magic that they've thrown together. So if you thought horrors were wild and unruly, these kind of take it to the next stage. So it's weird hollow. It is a magic themed season for Warhammer
Frankenstein
Underworlds,
creations.
and two really nice looking warbands. This being a new season, it is a really good place to jump into Warhammer Underworlds if you've not played it before. It comes with all the things you need to play. So you've got a board, you get all the dice you need, you get 4 decks, so you get a deck for each of the warbands. You also get 2 more Rivals decks.
The Rivals decks, so
Yeah.
right out of the batch, they've got a sort of evergreen format decks as well that are baked into the box.
Yeah, so those decks work with any of your existing warbands from any season of Warhammer Underworlds you've ever had, and also work particularly well with the 2 warbands that come in this
So
box.
it looks like you get 3
I think
Sigmar guys.
The stars of
and
this box, though, I think, are the miniatures as ever. Warhammer Underworlds has like,
4
a
Tzeentch
reputation, I
models.
suppose, for having some of the best, most iconic miniatures in Warhammer, and this is kind of no exception. So if we have a look at a bit more detail at the units, so we'll start off with Philim's Pandemonium. So you've got your sorcerer at the centre there, and they have summoned effectively elements of Tzeentch, wild magic
I like that,
manifested
whatever that
into the
pink
form of
thing is.
leaping
And
lesser
the bird
demons.
creature. But the other
So
two
it's
can...
all about
Yay.
basically that your sorcerer is summoning stuff. That's very much the linchpin of the warband, and the unit is just full of gimmicks, right? So this is a really wild, unusual warband, not only in terms of how it looks, but also how it plays.
It's a really well-named warband as well, and it's hard for me to believe that something this weird could be as adorable as the sea creatures we've seen in previous editions as well. But this is one of those bands where I saw it and immediately had to have it on the miniatures alone, much less the cool rules that we get in
I
the
do
next
like the
edition
name.
Yeah,
of
I really like
Underworlds.
the central character, Philim the sorcerer. The Gaunt Summoners, I think, are really nice miniatures, and this has got all the kind of hallmarks of that. It's slightly differently presented. I think Tzeentch just gives you an opportunity as a painter to just do some really wild stuff.
Just to go
I
out
think
and
in terms
go,
of
go crazy.
left field out
Go
there,
balls deep, as they
warbands,
say.
and just miniatures generally that don't come much more wild than this.
Very accessible too. A lot of organics, a lot of interesting flowing robes, but also a lot of room.
They
to
contrast up very nicely.
explore. They do.
Yeah, they
I'm not
contrast
saying
nicely.
they don't.
On the other side of the box, we have Domitan's Storm Coven. So this is a magic-themed Storm Host Stormcast unit. They are equipped in Thunderstrike armor, so they fit in
I
alongside.
like 2 of the
recent
models,
releases
but
we
the
had,
guy with
but also
the...
things like Dominion, just really nice Stormcast models. So each one is a great character model in their own right. Some really nice stuff going on with the bases.
He doesn't
really
look
nice
imposing.
poses and
He's kind of
proportions.
like
Again, if you're
lacking,
looking for a
generic.
painting
Like,
project,
I have a stick, here's the sword.
Warhammer Underworlds has outdone itself once more with.
The guy in the middle has an interesting pose, but the other 2 are kind of blah, bland. Kind of like the Primaris or the Space Marine pointing, you know.
Happening on the base. It's fascinating to see, and also, can't wait to see in a game where someone throws a colonnade at someone.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about it before. It comes with lots of different decks you can use. So you've got the Rivals decks for each of the warbands, but you've got 2 other Rivals decks that you can use
Not
with
really
each of the
sure how
warbands
this game
or
works.
with any other warband in Warhammer Underworld. So The box set itself is a really flexible gaming box that you can play on its own. You can incorporate it into other warbands you've got, into other seasons, or you can use it as the core of a brand new hobby, basically.
It's good to see that more people are also taking advantage of and recognizing that new element of Underworlds that Rivals has really brought to the fore. That it is, no matter how you purchase it, one of those things that has infinite flexibility, whether it's just for a regular game on occasion with your local game group, or whether it's building into that scene to go to things like the World Championships and everything.
I do like how they did
So
that.
Rivals, for those of you that don't know,
like
Rivals for Underworlds
dipping
is
your
effectively
toe
pre-made decks. You can choose from either the deck that comes with your
into the
warband
water
or
and see
from a
if you
selection of other
like the game setting or not.
generic decks, and it makes it very accessible because it means that you don't need to have bought loads and loads of different expansions for Warhammer Underworlds to kind of pick the best card from each. You just go, I just need that deck. It might come in one box alongside your warband, or you could just pick up a box like this, which comes with lots of different options, and all of a sudden, all of your warbands can use a variety of different decks to play. So it's a really
Warhammer at the edge of your fingertips anytime.
really nice box.
Or collect deep if you want to go for that Grand Clash and sort of World Championships grade of Warhammer.
Pretty cool.
What do we have next?
I think we're finished.
Yeah, are we done?
I think we're finished.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's what we're done.
Well, I'm glad everyone.
Lies!
3 a.m.
Lies!
UK time to
Burn the
see
liars!
some
Burn the
amazing-
heretics!
We got to see Lion.
That was pretty cool.
We got to see Underworlds. We got to see a whole bunch of stuff for Age of Sigmar.
Good times.
I'm pretty tired here. We did a live preview at AdeptiCon, an amazing show. I think we've got nothing left to cover, right?
Yep, hold on.
There's the
Bye bye.
one thing.
Is it Space
Are
Hulk?
we actually gonna do
We're
that?
gonna do it. Yeah. Should we roll the video?
No.
Space Hulk.
Don't be that guy. Come on. It's
Werner, fine. Go ahead.
Going to mute my mic.
Victory. That is what the preachers cry from the spires of their temples. What commanders tell the soldiers in their service. The Indomitus Crusade meets with triumph after triumph. Day by day we tear Imperium Nihilus from the Despoiler's grip. And though we are beset on all sides, with each battle we drive back the mutant, the heretic, the alien. As I speak these words, our forces engage the remnants of Leviathan.
Oh no! Oh no! Burn him!
Reclaiming lost worlds, atoning for old shames. A crusade to cleanse the stars.
I bet this is
Taking
gonna
the
be
fight
10th.
to the enemy.
Get him, Dreadnought! Light him up!
We routed the Tyranids at Baal. We broke their high fleet. Soon, their foulness will be but a memory.
No!
Is what the preachers say. Belief will not save us. Lies will not protect us.
Oh no!
But it is our hope that will damn us.
Daka Daka? Whoa!
In the spies and the slums.
Oh! You guys gonna need some Neosporin?
Our people sing of victory. Victory as the galaxy burns. Victory as the Imperium rots around us. Victory as humanity rages against the dying of the light.
They need the Crimson Fists. No, they fight orcs. Never mind.
Victory.
Victory! That was for 10th edition, I bet. I was hoping for Space Hulk, but that was still pretty cool.
A new edition of Warhammer 40,000. Who knew? Who knew?
Nobody called that, actually.
Nobody
It
had
was
any idea.
So good. I gotta tell you, growing up my whole life as a fan, there's something about the grim, dark 41st millennium that when you watched, and it was beautiful and it was stunning, but when you watched Sister, Adeptus Sororitas and the Ultramarines crushing some Necrons, there was a little bit of hope. There's a little bit of a glimmer.
That's all gone. That's all
Oh
gone.
yeah, that was the grim, dark 41st millennium to a T, and
That was not a happy video.
it's not the first time I've seen it tonight, and I am still excited at how not happy it was, actually.
But I think it just gives you like a sense of the absolute horrificness of not just like facing Tyranids, which is pretty horrific on the scale of things, but just generally, Warhammer 40,000 is an absolutely awful place to be alive, even for a Space Marine. Their like survivability against
Poor guy got ripped in half.
is measured in
It is awful.
minutes and hours.
It is terrible, but it is a wonderful place to have a hobby. And why don't we let the people who actually wrote the game tell us a little bit more about it?
Absolutely.
I mean, we'll tell you a lot, but first.
I really, really wanted the new Space Hulk.
Warhammer 40,000 is the world's most popular tabletop miniatures game.
Oh yeah, my guy.
Players command
I love
armies
this
of
actor.
genetically enhanced super soldiers, brutal monsters, powerful aliens, and destructive war machines to play out spectacular battles in the 41st millennium.
Our mantra with this new edition has been streamlining.
We've been listening to the community, and that's a large part of why we've decided to focus the game as much as possible.
How can we keep the tactical depth and richness that players love, but examine
Is
every rule in the
Ian
game? Does this need to
McShane.
be here, or is there another way that we can achieve the same result?
To secure victory, you must understand your strengths and the strengths of your enemy.
We've fundamentally changed the datasheets from the ground up.
Making them much more accessible and really focusing the rules onto the datasheet themselves. What the team's been able to do with this is really look at every unit in the game, make sure it has a really clear battlefield role and a thing for it to do, and then write the right rules for it.
Your datasheet rules all fit on a single card, and your army rules will fit on a single page.
One of the things we wanted to ensure was that everyone got to play 40k as soon as possible after the edition was launched. So to make that happen,
New model?
all of the rules for everyone's armies via the datasheets and their army rules will be available for free.
From the darkness between
thank
the
you,
stars,
thank you for
a
free.
twisted mockery of evolution spawns fresh horrors.
It's a galaxy at war. This is the onset
That
of
is
what
new.
the Imperium will regard as the
The
fourth
free
tyrannic
stuff.
war. This is the largest Tyranid swarm ever recognized in the galaxy, emerging when no one's expected it. The Segmentum Pacificus.
To be a warrior of the Emperor in such times is to face an array of nightmares.
What we've managed to achieve with this edition is a game that players of Warhammer 40,000 will love for its tactical depth and choices, but is streamlined and plays much quicker.
The end result is faster, while still keeping all
That's
the flavor
gonna
that you've come to love
upset
in
some
Warhammer
people.
40,000.
For players who've been with Warhammer 40,000 for the last 35 years, they've never seen anything like this before. We've never shown conflict at this scale.
Immersive and thrilling new gameplay. Discover a major new narrative in the Fourth Tyrannic War. The new edition of Warhammer 40,000 deploys this summer.
Are they going to bring back the Legion of the Damned? That would be because they popped up the last time there was problems with Tyranids.
So that's the Warhammer 40,000 studio had to say about some of the changes. It sounds very exciting.
It's very exciting. We'll talk about some of them in depth, in fact, in this very live stream, Eddie. But it's fascinates me because there's a whole bunch to unpack about the new edition, not least of which is what's going on with the lore of the 41st millennium, as well as what's happening with the rules. What does a streamlined
So is this another
experience
prequel, though?
actually mean? Is it still the 40k we've come to know and love, as well as what do free rules mean? Because there's a lot more to that than what you might expect.
There's lots of lines there thrown away which have quite big implications.
Yeah, we'll take some time to get to you, but I feel like the one thing we're missing is, well, the reason we've all gotten into the hobby in the first place. Why don't we take a look at some miniatures?
Get them all! No Terminator. Just the one.
So, Terminators are back. These are the first company of the Space Marines. Each one of those chapters has Terminators. They are the best of the Space Marines. And the new miniatures are absolutely what Terminators always were in your mind. Yep. These are indomitable, walking powerhouses of destruction.
Walking
juggernauts of hate and fury unleashed upon the enemies of mankind.
And really brought up to speed with the development of the miniature range as a whole in the new edition, as well as the way that the miniatures themselves have been scaled over time. And I'm especially excited because as I was watching the chat during some of the videos earlier, I saw a bunch of people saying, "Oh, I thought we were going to see new Terminator miniatures." And, well, you were going to see new Terminator miniatures, and
I want a new Space Hulk.
Stunning. They do all of the justice to the original sculpts. They do all of the justice to the aesthetic and the feel of Terminators in the first place, while being brought up to the scale that really justifies what they are in the war.
So they stand really well in the army. They stand taller than Primaris Marine. One of the things that's worth saying about these Terminators is that these aren't necessarily Primaris Terminators. They're not necessarily Firstborn Terminators. Any Space Marine can earn the right to wear a suit of Terminator armor if they prove themselves to get promoted.
So I wonder if they're going to have two different
worthy of the mantle of wearing Terminator armor. So these could be worn by veterans of the Firstborn veterans of the previous Tyrannic Wars. They could also be worn by Primaris veterans of the Indomitus Crusade or any other type of Space Marine veteran.
And this is deeply true in the lore for the models. This is canonical. This is the way that they are intended. And we're not being cheeky when we say that we've actually handled both the long-running demand for new Firstborn miniatures and for Primaris Terminators. Because they are, when all is said and done, Terminators. And there could be anyone inside those.
The Terminator suits themselves are relics, right? So these are thousands of years old, and even Belisarius Cawl, after 10,000 years of fiddling around with all the tech he had, couldn't improve on the Terminator suit. So they still have their Crux Terminatus with those shards of the Emperor's own armor. You can actually look there at the Terminator in a bit more detail, and you can see that like every single element of it, all like the pipes and the cabling and the storm bolter and the helmet, they are recognizably the Terminators that you know and love. But all of it, the detail is so much crisper. The proportions and the pose are so much cooler. When you see these guys on the battlefield, they really have a presence.
Big
and obviously the Terminators come with all sorts of cool kit. The Power Fist and Storm Bolter are standard. The unit also obviously comes with an assault cannon. We saw one of those earlier as well. So it's just great to see such an
more options besides that
back in Warhammer 40,000.
I can't wait to see more of them, but I feel like we need to see the other side of the spectrum as well. But first, I think it's good to highlight the difference in scale between the Terminators of old and the Terminators of today. And you can kind of see in this how their bulk and their size has not rendered the old Terminators to be tiny necessarily, but really fits much more prominently within the range of miniatures that are available for the Space Marine faction. Kind of perfectly land in that new wave of miniatures we've seen over the last several years.
They look really good as well, facing off against something like the more recent Chaos Terminators, some of the kind of the bigger character models. So your something like a Primarch, maybe like Reboot Guilliman or the Lion or something like that, leading a squad of these guys. And obviously every chapter, all the main chapters we know about, have their own particular special brand of Terminator. So the Death Watch, the Archangels, the First Company veterans of the Ultramarines that have their particular beef against the Tyranids.
They do have quite a beef.
They've got some serious beef. But so every chapter's Terminators are cool, and these models allow you to be as cool as Terminators always should have been.
I couldn't agree more. And speaking of the beef that they have for Tyranids, we've shown you a new Space Marine miniature.
Seems only fair, doesn't it? Seems only fair.
New Tyranids, new bugs. Gaunt.
termagants.
New termagants. So termagants are the most numerous forces of the hive mind. They spawn them out in their millions and their billions across the planets they're seeking to consume.
That wasn't a
the new
god?
termagants are a glow up basically of the termagants we've seen
It's also the
before.
first model I ever painted.
Really?
Eddie, a little known fact is that a termagant was the first model I ever painted, and now I can't wait to paint millions more of them in the new wave.
So here we are, a closer look at them, and you can see that the level of detail on these is so crisp and so lovely. And these are very much the vanguard of a new wave of Tyranids. The Tyranid faction is going to get absolutely spoiled this year. If you're a Tyranid fan, there
I'm
are
not
so
a big fan
many
of the paint
new
scheme.
plastic kits. It's the most significant update to the Tyranid army we've ever done as a company.
I'm excited about it as a long-time Tyranid fan as well, because there's an enormous amount of work that's been done to make the Tyranid range feel both nostalgic but also very fresh. And of course, anyone who watches a cinematic trailer should probably watch it carefully, or rewatch it a few times carefully. But I think one of the things that's most exciting is that there is there's a natural alien nature to the Tyranids, right? They're the most alien of
like
races
unknowable,
to the
right?
galaxy,
So
almost
space
unknowable.
bugs.
And there's some definite
You need your
sort of
space
evolution
raid to get rid of them.
range into exploring that sort of very foreign, very alien, very truly unknowable element of the Tyranid with the new range. And I'm so excited to see the reactions of folk when we share even more of the new plastic range of Tyranids in the future.
Yeah, as you say, Mike, if you want a sense of like which new miniatures might be on the way for Tyranids, check out the cinematic. There are some returning favourites, it's fair to say. Some units that maybe haven't had the time in the limelight for a bit and are well deserving of a new plastic kit.
Hey, you don't have to scream it to me.
Yeah, and there are some things
don't
we've
look too
never
good.
seen before. So one of the hallmarks of the Tyranids, I suppose, is their continuous adaptation and evolution in the face of challenges. And the Hive Fleet has definitely taken that on board with this latest Tyrannic invasion.
And we can see here in the scaling again that while the Termagant has definitely come a long way from its very tried and true, the trusty, rusty old plastic kit, it hasn't been outscaled in the development of it. It's still the same Termagant in terms of how it fits into the range as it used to be, just with that really fresh glow up, with that really
I think it's the level of
detailed
detail
look.
that really changes. So like I've got
better
quite
detail
a lot
on
of
it.
Termagants. I've got a Tyranid army. I've got about 30 Termagants painted up, I think. But I'm
those
looking.
are rookie numbers. You gotta
absolutely.
bump those up.
Yeah, they were mostly just to come out of a Termagant, I think. Was what I painted them up for. But they're so detailed. Like the level of like crispness on that model, and you can see now that like contrast on that miniature, or like a wash or a dry brush or something like that, is going to pick out all that detail really nicely. So even though it's really, really detailed, you could certainly paint those very quickly if you wanted to.
Absolutely. And besides just the miniatures, there's a whole lot going on
Buzz,
in the
buzz.
41st millennium, isn't there, with the arrival of this new Tyranid range? What does that bode for us in terms of when we talk about the actual development of the universe itself, Eddie?
Yeah, so the new edition of Warhammer 40,000 is the new Tyrannic War. It's the fourth Tyrannic
That means there's
War
going to be
against the
new
Tyranids.
Tyranid types.
So what we saw at the end of the Arcs of Omen,
'Cause
with
whatever
the
they
return of the
devour,
Lion,
they basically
the end of that
are
story.
able
So
to
it
create
has a
new
really
troops.
solid, conclusive
So
narrative.
now
that
we've
kind of
got
has a big culmination. a big
squats they can
showdown
devour
between
and some
the
other
forces
stuff,
of the,
along
Angel
with
of Death
new
and the
Primaris
forces of Chaos.
Marines.
And then what we've
We'll
done with
probably
the new
get
edition
better-
is we've picked up the lens
better
of
units.
what's going on in the galaxy. We've moved it to another part. In this instant, it's the western rim of the galaxy. So if you're
Western Rim.
if you're familiar
Didn't
with
the
your
Tyranids typically come from...
they come from the east usually. They come from the east. So if you're familiar with your Warhammer 40,000 lore, you'll know that generally speaking, the Tyranid invasions have all come from the galactic east, and they've kind of picked off Macragge and
Yeah,
the Tower
it
homeworlds.
was always told as the beginning of this tendrils, with the Hive Fleet in theory behind it.
Yeah, so what we've got now with the fourth Tyrannic War is the forces of the Leviathan. The Imperium has been fighting them for quite a long time, and they thought they kind of got their measure, right? They fought them at Baal.
Broke their fleets at Baal.
Yeah, they thought they might have seen the peak of Leviathan halted, and that's absolutely not true. What we're seeing now is from the other side of the galaxy, this enormous, great tendril, this sweeping mass of Tyranids, the largest invasion we've seen yet, swooping in
That's
from
not
the
good.
other side.
And it's
So-
still part of Leviathan.
Yeah, so Leviathan is kind of crushing both sides of the galaxy. The galaxy is literally in the jaws of Hive Fleet Leviathan.
But
this
galaxy is also ripped in
Giving
half
like a
by
sense of the
giant
absolute
warp storm.
scale and cosmic horror of the Tyranids, which everybody knew was huge, but this is like, we thought it was just coming from one direction, and actually the galaxy is completely surrounded. There are Tyranids
It's
coming
a
from all
huge
sides.
and stunning change for me in terms of reflecting sort of the scope, scale, alien nature, and sort of almost the terminal threat that Tyranid represent. It's not an unknowable, who knows how much more it is. They're so large that the entire galaxy is now surrounded
Absolutely.
effectively.
So the Tyranids are now the
Just
biggest threat.
Another apocalypse
the sneaky
to add
boys.
to the growing list for the Imperium.
Well, should we talk a little bit about the rules?
Let's talk rules, yeah.
Eddie.
Big
It's one of those things
changes.
we're not sure anyone will wonder how
Simplified,
much we'll
not
talk
simple.
about the reveal right up with the cinematic, but we'll do that. We'll talk a little bit about what does new 40K bring from an actual playing of the game perspective. First one is, we mentioned that the game has been streamlined, it's been simplified.
They did that in 8th, which I was okay with.
It's still Warhammer 40,000. It's still the game that we all sort of know and
And
love.
they switched up the rules
and it
even
has
more
all
in
of the
9th.
hallmarks of Warhammer 40,000.
To a lot of people, weren't okay with the changes in 8th, and really didn't like the changes in 9th.
But from a simplification
I didn't
perspective,
like
there's
the
been an
nerf
awful
that
amount of work done to
Death
make
Guard
the game
got in
less
9th, but
make redundancy
I
and
understood
minor
that
rules
they were a
spread
little bit
across
OP.
publications less complicated. And to streamline everything into sort of, we'll talk about
That kind of
it a little bit
happens
as we
with
go through
every new
these-
army. Like
these next
each new
elements
army
of
is
the game.
always OP,
You
more
know, a
OP
good
than the
example is
last
instead
one.
of having, let me think of it, if you were to run a Space Marine detachment today, Space Marines army, you might have a book that has several pages of stratagems, you have several pages of psychic powers, you have warlord traits, you have relics, you have all these rules and layers of rules. And then if you want them
quite
to
a lot to learn,
it's
right?
a lot. And
Before
then
you
if you want to
make
make
the
them
thing.
Ultramarines and add that on
quite
top,
confusing
you've
if you're
got
running
pages of
multiple different armies.
stratagems and so on and so forth. What we didn't want to do is get rid of the value of things like stratagems and enhancements to your warlord or to some of your key character units. But they've been simplified down so that when you're playing, you'll have one full page spread open, and on that one
That
full
would
page
be
spread,
nice,
you'll have a series
but
of stratagems, about 6 on average per army, as well as a series of upgrades to your warlord or to your relics, and a sub-faction rule, effectively, to whatever your army may be.
But they've
And
done
if you
wrong.
choose to play a different grouping, let's say you go from Ultramarines to Ultramarines First Company, instead of adding a whole nother book to the whole experience, you'll take that one-page spread of rules and replace it with a different one, so that you're always working with a really tight, streamlined set of rules, but still the same depth that you have today with
That's
an
not
army,
bad.
different stratagems, different abilities, and then a number of different stratagems, rules,
And I
elements
hope
have been taken
when
and
they
put back
update
onto
the
data
rules,
sheet
change
to
the
really
rules,
bring
the
units to
updates and
forefront
the
of
new
the
rules
game's
will be free.
again.
And you don't
So
have
as
to keep
opposed
buying
putting
new
down
books
units
after
and
new
then
book
playing a lot
after
of
new
the game,
book.
as it were, from the front of the book. There's a greater emphasis for many of those rules moving into the data sheets and moving into the overall game experience. We also have key changes to phases. They've been streamlined. We have the morale phase has been moved into the command phase and rejiggered entirely with something called Battle Shock, which we may talk about a little bit more here. The psychic phase has been broken down into the actual data sheets of the rules and abilities.
So it's not a psychic phase
There
anymore.
isn't an actual psychic
that's a key
phase
change.
anymore in the game. Instead, psychic abilities are baked into the units themselves. They still work in some ways evocative of how psychic powers work today, but it's not an entire phase that applies in very different ways to different
So,
armies.
for example, a librarian might have Smite, which would be a ranged shooting attack with a
Yeah.
psychic.
Mine bullets.
Yes, with reflections of things like the hazardous nature of using it at a very high level, with the potential to inflict mortal wounds and other things, but still focused as basically a shooting attack. Whereas, some of the psychic powers that might buff a unit or debuff a unit are more baked into an ability within the data sheet as opposed to, an entire phase oriented around the functionality, and it better reflects the sort of strengths and weaknesses of different psychers. Someone like a Primaris psyker within the Astral Meltarum might not be as reliable getting off their abilities as Magnus the Red, who's probably not going to fail them.
Yeah, so Magnus the Red has a ranged psychic
Magnus
attack.
the
but
Mad.
It's like a really good range
Big
psychic attack.
Absolutely.
dog
And
As
it's
well as a
specific
range
to the
of
way
other
that he
psychic
works
abilities.
as well, as opposed to just a generic psychic ability that every other psyker has.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit about morale and battle shock there. I think obviously we'll dive into all of these rules in a lot more detail on the Warhammer community site over the coming weeks and months. But I think one of the things that I really like about the new edition, the changes, is that you don't lose models in morale anymore. You don't have
No, you don't.
fail a morale tech and actually just
and
take
morale
units off. It just changes the way that unit interacts with the game.
It does. It works much
That's
more with a
interesting.
unit that's been broken up and banged up within a very fast-paced, sort of almost modern firefight, and that those units might not interact as well with rules and with grabbing objectives and other things as they normally would. Additionally, it has much more relevance throughout the game, whereas today you might, kill off most of the models in the unit. They barely pass the morale test. A couple models survive, and they go hide in a corner on an objective all game, and they're basically fine from then on out, even though most of their unit's been devastated. Battle Shock will have less of an impact on models disappearing from the board and more of an impact on testing their metals.
How
throughout the
reliable
course
is
of the
that
game.
unit now?
Morale didn't
And once a unit
make
has been
sense
damaged
for
to a
all the
certain
units
degree,
in the
it can
game.
become less reliable on a regular basis each turn, depending upon how they hold themselves together in the face of the ongoing attrition of battlefield.
Should we talk about stratagems a little bit?
There's definitely fewer stratagems to remember. There's many more stratagems that are core stratagems that you'll commonly see in gameplay. Whereas whenever you play a faction, you basically always have 6 stratagems available.
Yeah.
And if you decide to play a different variation of that faction, you'll take those 6 stratagems away and replace them with 6 new ones that are for that variation, i.e. Ultramarines versus Imperial Fists or something similar to that effect.
So you have a very common, a list of common stratagems that everyone can use, and that's a little bit bigger than it is now. and then you have a much smaller list of ones that are specific to the faction.
Yep, and they're much more focused on really impactful stratagems you'll want to use on a regular basis. There's also fewer command points.
Sorry, I'm taking this in and I don't want to talk over
so
them.
there's much more of a focus on using the right stratagem at the right time, rather than dumping all of your command points on turn 1 into a series of combos that makes it feel like you're playing against, again, the front of the book as opposed to the armies and the data sheets that are on the
Yeah,
tabletop.
just spamming
Also,
abilities.
let's be very clear. We've re-indexed the game. All of the index rules are free.
That's
and
going
are
to be
free
nice.
on day 1, as are all of the core rules to play the game.
So that means on the first day of the new edition, if I've got an orc army, which I do, I can get my core rules, I can get all my data sheets for my orcs, and I can play a game with that army on the first day of the
And
new
all
edition.
your army rules as well. Now, there's nothing in particular that's hidden.
very nice.
All of them are free and available on day 1 to play with, and the points are going digital and free as well on day 1.
Ooh,
Nice.
I like
So
that.
There's also the ability to purchase indexes, because if you want to have them, you can have actual physical data sheet cards.
So
You're no
those are a
longer-
little bit like the War Scroll cards in
Yep,
Warhammer
little
Age of
bit like
Sigmar.
Age of
so
Sigmar, War Scroll
all of the
cards.
rules are kind of compacted onto a single card.
Yep, and you no longer necessarily need to bring all of them with you if your army only uses 10 data sheets instead of the 180 you have in Space Marine or however many it is these days. You only need to bring those data sheets
You don't
with
need
instead of lugging the whole book, because again,
bring
you just
a
have that
small
one open
library
page
of
or a
books
couple
for
of data
rules
cards
and
of your
things
actual army rules and
for your
stratagems,
army.
and then your individual.
That's nice. That's very nice.
That was a common thing, wasn't it? That we were being told from the community was like, they like the Warhammer 40,000 as a game, but there's a lot of rules to carry around, right? There's
Yes.
rules
Too many,
bloat in terms
too
of
many.
the things you have to remember, but also the amount of books that you need to take with you when you play a game, and you've got less things to remember, less things to know about your opponent's army, but the variety of it in terms of like the choices you have.
And
I
army
do like
building
that.
itself, as we just saw back there, I don't know if we'll go back to that one image.
Because that means gameplay is going to be faster.
Army building itself has
And
simplified.
You're not going to
and
get
it's- when we
confused
say it's
or
simplified, it is a
mind
much more
boggled and
accessible
forget
thing to get into.
rules.
And we've done a lot of interesting things with the rules to make it more innovative and more immersive to build a diverse army, as opposed to just taking only the best units, or on paper
Yay.
the best units. And the way it's been simplified is you take a character, your warlord, you take up to 3 of any data sheet, or up to 6 of any basically troop or dedicated transport data sheet, and that's it. And so you need to have a warlord, and then you take up to 3 of most units. Additionally, there's been a great deal of work in putting things like what used to be individual unit stratagems and other abilities into the data sheet itself. And there's a variety of
You
rules
basically
that are
build
tailored to
meta
work with
or
this type of army.
spam hammer.
A good example being that a Space Marine captain might have a really powerful ability, but only one model per turn can use that ability, and so taking a second or third one isn't necessarily a value add. And there's many different units that, instead of there being a stratagem where after your unit shoots and targets a unit, now your other units get a benefit against it, there might be a key unit that provides that buffer benefit to your army. And so working in a combined arms way
Interesting.
and leveraging different data sheets into your army in an
I
innovative way
might get
is
into
oftentimes
10th. I'm
by
not sure.
design much more impactful and useful and interesting than simply taking 3 of one thing and 3 of the other. So army
Especially
building's
if
been
I get the rule
simplified,
books all
but the
digital now.
depth and interest in actually building a diverse force has been a major focus for how the data sheets have been built and how the army rules have been designed.
So every unit basically has got their thing. Like they've got the thing that they
Yes.
bring to your army. So
Absolutely.
in a way that at the moment you might be relying on
The
strategy
Tau
for
do
something
not bring
do a
melee to the
particular,
party.
niche or
They
to
leave
fill a
that at
particular
home.
need. A lot of the time the unit and the data sheet will allow you to do that. So that's
Yep.
why you take that particular unit.
Much greater focus on your army doing the work of being an army, as opposed to how can I take the most optimal units and then use my stratagems or the sort of front of my book to do all of the work.
Yeah, so I think we had an example data sheet that
We
might
do
be
have an
worth
example of a
talking
new
through
data
some of the
sheet.
things because it looks quite a lot different
keep
from the
bringing
data
this up.
sheets we
Data
have at
sheets
the
are
moment.
heavily different, and with the
Move,
decision to
toughness,
index, there's also the opportunity
save,
to revamp the way
wounds.
data sheet looks and works and is designed.
Leadership.
Here you can see the new termagants,
What
which is
is
quite cool.
OC?
They have an ability that focuses on how the unit behaves and is very thematically
I
tied to them.
guess one of the things before we get too into it is that the data sheet does look quite different, but actually the effect in terms of what it does in the game is not a million miles away from the way that Warhammer 40,000 works on
Range,
stage.
ballistic
No, it's going to
skills,
seem very familiar. It's not a
strength,
move to something like Age of
armor
Sigmar where every
penetration,
unit
damage.
hits or wounds on a fixed number or something like that. Instead, it's still very similar to what you'll remember or recognize from Warhammer 40,000 today. But the ranged weapons and melee weapons and things like that have been moved into their own profile. You'll notice that attacks and ballistic skill and weapon skill and strength,
Yeah, they still
those-
exist. They're just attached to the weapon
They're moved
rather
into the
than
weapon.
about the fighter.
that allows us to do a wide variety of things with the way that the units are designed, such as something like chainswords or a Space Marine captain's power fist versus a Space Marine sergeant's power fist. Those things can all be somewhat different, and they can reflect the way the individual models work rather than being hard tied to the individual model's attacks or strength.
Very
characteristics.
interesting.
So we've
so on and so
got a
forth.
few questions in the chat about OC. Do you want to
OC.
talk a bit about that?
Yeah, what is
Objective
OC?
control. So OC effectively
objective
establishes
control.
the value that each model in a unit has if it is within range of an objective marker. So a unit of 10, now, things like objective secured as a rule, those are gone. Instead, it's reflected with the individual units. Each model may have a different objective control characteristic. So each termagant is worth effectively 2 points if it's within range of an objective.
I got it. So
Whereas
if you've got
something
10,
that may be bigger
each of those
or
are
more robust,
2.
but isn't really focused on grabbing objectives.
And if you
may
got
only have a
5
one.
and another one,
It also
and
means
they're
things
worth
like knights,
like
which
have a
was
much higher
particularly
10.
struggled with objective control,
Yep.
can actually now count as lots of the AOC could be quite high, and they could, you know, one grot doesn't beat one knight sort of thing.
It's definitely an improvement in the way we design models for function, because again, when you look at things like what does optimal mean, as some of the folks who play the game at some levels focus on, instead you can go, well, this unit may not have the same damage output as another unit, but it's much, much better at grabbing objectives, which still remain a very
But
key
I imagine
part of how the game
termagants
is
are going to
played.
be relatively cheap, right? So that's probably one of the
I
cheapest.
don't think they're going to cost the same as a Terminator.
But that's going to be one of the most efficient ways to fill the board with objective control.
Absolutely, which is exactly what termagants tend to
Go
do.
spam your
and we've done some things to make the units
fodder
appear
units on
reflected in their
objectives.
data sheet abilities in a very interesting way that reflects how their actual lore works. There's a whole bunch of work done to look at their lore, their IP, and make sure that the abilities actually reflected that. In the case of the scuttling termagants that are very sneaky, can tend to be difficult to pin down. When you get within 9 inches of a unit, the unit gets to move in a
So
reaction.
that's very reactive compared to the current edition.
And there's a ton of addition of reactive abilities and reactive stratagems and reactive data sheet abilities into the game, so that you're playing a lot more of an interesting game with your opponent during their turn. So there's less phases, and there is a greater investment in abilities and stratagems, things that work during your opponent's turns, so that the game itself is a much more dynamic experience when you play.
Very neat.
We've got a couple of people noticing slight differences in the stats. So I think one of the things worth saying is that because this is a re-indexing of the game, we've also had the opportunity to look at the things like durability and strength and how common AP is across the entire game.
There are two major changes that are worth focusing on. That one, in general, lethality is down. It doesn't mean that it's down to a degree that might remind someone of editions many moons ago.
You still don't want to stand out in the open in front of a
You're probably going to get shot in the open if you do stand in the open. But the game is going to be a little bit less lethal than it is today. Cover is going to work a little bit differently. We're going to talk about
AP
all
is
of
a
this
little
stuff
bit
over
rarer.
time. AP is a little bit lower on average. And then there's also a stratification of strength and toughness when it comes to larger monsters and vehicles. Today is very much the case where you tend to see very few things that are different from, like, for instance, toughness 7.
Yeah, you cap out about 8, don't you? It's very, very rare to have anything that's higher than 8.
So if your army has a large amount of access to strength 8 weaponry, strength 7 weaponry, it really is able to wound almost anything in the game pretty reliably, and that's no longer going to be the case. I'm not going to spoil anything for you, Eddie, but there definitely is a much, much higher level of toughness.
Well, there's vehicles that have toughness higher than 10.
Well, there's vehicles that have toughness higher than 11.
Jeez.
And what that does is it creates a much better stratification of the game, so that having dedicated role units to deal with different threats is much more of a real component, as opposed to, gosh, I sure have a lot of strength 8 in this army. I guess I wound everything on 3s or better. And so that kind of brings back, not quite the same as armor values back in the day, where certain things couldn't hurt anything, but a much more robust stratification.
Yeah,
of the
so
different
you
types
couldn't,
of
for example, take, I'm just going to invest heavily in plasma, and that's going to
just
solve
wipe
the
everything.
game for me, because I've
Or
got
las
all
cannons.
the 7 and 8 strength I need.
Yep, because while toughness went up on many units, in many cases strength did not go up on many weapons. So a plasma gun has not changed materially in its strength. Its AP might have even changed downward, whereas the
Why
units
would
that
it
used
change?
to be wounded on 3s by a supercharged plasma gun now may only be wounded on a 5 by them.
Oh, it'd be big.
Substantial changes involved there, and of course the data sheets, you're going to see many more of them in the time to come. Eddie, I know we won't talk too much about it, so that you can talk all about it.
Yeah, so we will cover loads and loads of the rules over on the community site in the coming weeks and months. A couple of other things are worth talking about. Boarding actions and boarding patrols from the latest Arcs of Omen books. They are compatible with the new edition of Warhammer 40,000. So if you've been collecting yourself 500-point combat patrols of infantry to go diving into Space Hulks, they will absolutely still be able to do that in the new edition. So you can take all those recently constructed armies with you as we go. So that'll be really
all of the boarding patrol rules that are in the Arcs of Omen books are fully compatible. They were designed to be that way, so that if you've been investing in those books and the amazing story they've told and the rules themselves, none of them are invalidated by the release of the new edition. They haven't been taken away.
That's
it's
good.
A short-term use, they'll be usable well into.
Yeah, which is really cool. And then there is another interesting way to play Warhammer 40,000. So Combat Patrol is a new thing in Warhammer 40,000, a brand new way to play the game. And the way that this works is different from the way that Combat Patrol works today. The way it works is that you pitch Combat Patrols against each other. So where you choose your army is you pick up any of the Combat Patrol boxes,
and then they fight each other.
and that is your force. You can build it however you want out of that box, and it is balanced and pitched against other combat patrols in a similar way that you might.
That's how
play
they're still going to sell those
you
boxes.
have a preset list of units. The rules for combat patrol are a little bit different from Warhammer 40,000, so maybe slightly simpler in places, and slightly less access
Warhammer
to
Light.
the choice. But fundamentally, you are playing Warhammer 40,000 at a very accessible level, and it's really cool for a couple of reasons. One of them is that if you want to start a new army, it gives you a very, very accessible way to try them out, basically. So you don't need to put yourself together 2,000.
That's always been the purpose, though, of the combat patrols, is to kind of like start an army.
You can play combat patrol and have a really good, fun game balanced against lots of other armies. And the other thing is that if you like to dip your toe into lots of different forces, so you're a kind of hobby butterfly, I suppose, and you're like, oh, I like playing with Chaos, but I also like my Orcs, and I quite
that's
like
me.
Models that came out, and I like a bit of this. Then you can jump between lots of armies, again, without needing to necessarily collect full forces.
Yes, because that is stupid expensive.
I think nuance and context are everything for me on this one, too.
I learned that the hard way.
When we even talk about the differences between Combat Patrol and sort of the full-size 40k game, they're very, very minor. So architecturally, it is the exact same game. And what you might see as a change is because Combat Patrol is meant to be both streamlined and easy to play and also accessible to newer players, you might have a unit that has 2 data sheet abilities, A and B, and they are relatively simple in the Combat Patrol. When it moves up to the full-size 40k, that same data sheet is going to have basically the same abilities, but maybe a little bit more robust or more broad sweeping for the full-size game. It's not going to be completely different abilities.
So we're going to get new Combat Patrol boxes then, too, with new units?
But it's built and
hopefully
actively balanced
they should
aggressively every day by the studio, so that whatever Combat Patrol you want, and the rules for it are free as well, and will evergreen be free. You buy that Combat Patrol, it is built to be played against all of the other Combat Patrols the way it is out of the box.
It's a really, really nice new way of playing 40k. We've got one question that's popping up a lot in the chat I just wanted to answer is there's some questions there about Forge World rules. Forge World models for Warhammer 40,000 will also get free data sheets.
I didn't even think about that.
So if you've got your Gargantuan Squiggoth, it's a great kit. Why would you not, right?
Of course Eddie brings up the Gargantuan Squiggoth. It's one of the things we talk about all the time.
You can still use it.
So all Forge World rules will be taken care of. They'll be free, of course, just like all the index rules are on day 1. It's
yay!
We have a new app.
Yep.
It works.
New app?
Which is one of the important things we're really excited about.
Do you have to pay for it, though?
Army Builder, all of the rules available in it again, all of the points free and digital on day 1.
Because the last
so
app...
we're fairly excited about all these new things that are coming to fore.
It
should make the game more
wasn't that
accessible,
great.
And more easily gotten into than ever before. If you play today,
at least in my opinion,
play fully with no caveats or asterisks on day 1 of the new edition.
One of the questions that's popped up quite a lot I just wanted to address is Crusade. So Crusade is absolutely, definitely still a part of Warhammer 40,000.
Very, very big part of it.
There will be some ways to, if you've been crusading for the past 3 years and you've had a good time, you've taken your troops through all sorts of battlefields to the distant corners of the galaxy, there will be some ways to port that army into the new edition, which is pretty cool. There will also be some brand new expansions for Crusade. So, the new edition starts with the 4th Tyrannic War. That might give you a sense of where
some of
the first Crusade expansions might go. But if you enjoy Crusade, and lots of people do, there is still definitely ways to engage with that in the new edition.
It's fair to say that Crusade was one of the big hits of the previous edition, and I don't think it's going anywhere. We're doubling down on it on all fronts, really, whether it's in our event scene with things like the Grand Narrative, whether it's in organized plays, we start to connect more of a narrative element to that, all sort of globally, or whether it's, of course, in the revitalization and release of effectively Crusade 2.0. But we don't want to spoil everything.
Crusade 2.0.
Preview. We'll give Eddie and his team all the time to share all this excitement.
Yellowman's refrigerator.
Yeah, so
the last Oreos.
New edition of Warhammer 40,000 will be coming in summer.
I don't know why you put them in the refrigerator, though.
Weeks and months yet before we get there. So keep checking out warhammercommunity.com. You can sign up to a newsletter to find out all the news as it happens. We've got loads of stuff to show you, including new miniatures. We'll talk about all the new rules we've mentioned in loads more detail, all the new lore, everything about it. Follow along on warhammercommunity.com, and keep up to date.
We could talk your ear off all night long. Thank you for getting up so early or so late, depending upon your personal time zone, to share this time with us. To share the excitement with us.
No Space Hulk,
but twice now, once live for
I kind of knew that this is probably going to be for
Did you have a favorite? Obviously, the new Warhammer 40,000 is pretty cool. But did you have like a favorite thing in the other previews we had?
I was a big fan of the Lion.
It's pretty cool.
The Lion was pretty cool.
Comes up. But honestly, I'm going to tell you that the Seraphon. I mean, they scratch on itch for me that connects to everything.
To me, it was the Seraphon, and then the cinematic for
owning every single dinosaur
10th.
growing up, and
those were my favorites.
actively collecting and painting now.
Everything
So,
else was just kind of
can't pick just one
meh.
thing. Suffice to say, it's an exciting summer and year to come for Warhammer.
Yeah, it's going to be really good times ahead for every single game system. Basically, is getting treats in the next few months.
Besides the Beastmen.
Thanks all. We won't keep you up any longer. You can hear more in the future. Eddie, thanks for having me.
No problem. See you guys.
Alrighty. That was that. That was all of AdeptiCon. I dropped a lot of frames, so I'm going to reiterate some of the stuff that I said. We're just going to go back over here. Basically, I got into Warhammer around 7th edition, so the 7th edition was the first box set that I picked up with the Dark Angels and the Chaos guys, and I didn't know a whole lot about the different factions and stuff, because my other previous entry that got me into Warhammer was the video game for the Xbox 360, which was Space Marine for Warhammer 40,000. I prefer to call it Space Marine, and I got into that, and I really liked the miniatures and stuff, and I wanted to get more into it and learn more about it. But my local hobby shop, they're crappy. I do not like them. The guys, they pretty much treat everybody, including the regulars, like shoplifters and thieves. They watch you like a hawk. I know that in the past they've had issues with shoplifters and stuff, but I mean, they just treat everybody like dirt. When it came to me, I bought the box set and they gave me a coupon. I came back in to use the coupon and they basically said, "You stole that from us because it's not signed." And I said, "Fuck you guys, no I did not." And I haven't been in there since. It wasn't until 8th edition came out that I really got back into the really back into it, really liked it. 9th edition came out, and at the time I was kind of feeling hobby burnt out with putting miniatures together and painting. I took a long time off of that, and then Horus Heresy came out 2.0. I wanted to make a Night Lords army because I really like the Night Lords. They're the spoopy boys of the universe, so I got to start putting those guys together. I have to finish up. I've got a lot of miniatures I got to finish up. I've got knights that I haven't started, and so on and so forth. But I really do like the Warhammer stuff. I really do. I did pick up some not older models. I mean, now they're going to be called older models with the Seraphim models. I picked up some of those because I like the lore of those guys. I like the look of the kind of the older models, but I really like the newer models. I'm just concerned about the price range because they've jacked up the price range considerably multiple times since I've started. I'm really hoping maybe they'll bring back the Legion of the Damned. Really like those guys. All that model range was in metal. Everybody thought they were going to get a fresh restart, maybe an 8th, and then maybe again a 9th, but they just kind of disappeared forever. It's time to start getting rid of the old metal models and the old resin models and just refreshing armies. The lion I really liked. I'm glad he has the helmeted options because I am no good at painting faces. I don't know if I will pick up his model or not. Maybe, I don't know. I really want to see some beef between him and Guilliman, and maybe he takes the Emperor's sword away from Guilliman and says, "You are not worthy," and he becomes the new Emperor. Maybe there's just like a little divide in the Imperium. I know some people like Guilliman, some people don't like Guilliman. Guilliman he's okay, but he's just the poster boy. You know, his chapter became the poster boys, and I want to see somebody else come along in basically become the poster boys for a bit. The Ultramarines, they've had their time in the sun. It's time for them to step back and let some of the other cooler factions take in. I was really hoping that this edition was actually going to bring in more to do with the Void chapters, because you saw that in 8th that the Void chapters were coming out. I was hoping new models and specific rule books for them. I am super excited that the rules are going to be free. That is awesome. That is very awesome. I hope the app isn't going to cost you an arm and a leg that you have to pay. I mean, they say the rules are going to be free, but you might have to pay to use the app. I hope that if you do have to pay for the use the app, maybe it's like a one-time purchase and not a subscription purchase. I don't know. I know the last time they brought out an app, it didn't always quite work out. Valrak was very right about the Lion coming out. His sources have always been right. I've always gone to his streams to see what is coming, and he'll usually say something, and there are times it's 50-50, you know, it's right, but it doesn't come out till later, or, you know, it might be right, but not in the right context. But I do enjoy his streams. I do enjoy Winters. I do enjoy that lot. They're very good guys. They're actually the ones that inspired me to originally do my YouTube channel, which was supposed to be Warhammer content. But I didn't go with Warhammer content right away. I kind of left that on the back burner for so long because I didn't know how to stream it. Really didn't know how to stream it. And I still really can't stream it because where my streaming setup is, and I really don't have a lot of friends that are really interested in Warhammer, and I really can't go, like I said, to my local hobby shops and stuff to play Warhammer because they're just not great. They rather focus on competitive card playing games like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, stuff like that. I'm saying a lot. But this has been a very interesting stream. I am going to clip a lot of this and put it over on YouTube. This is going to go towards my dreaded hobby content, and I will break down the stuff that I find interesting. The stuff that I don't find interesting, I'm not going to clip. I didn't care for the free army. Those guys, those models were ugly. They were not very exciting. I know they were supposed to be cannon fodder, but no. I mean, if they made them comical, if they made them like Gully Dwarves, that would have been funny. But Gully Dwarves don't exist in Warhammer, so. But I would love an army like that in Warhammer, just murderous, kind of stupid dwarves that wear pots and pans on their heads, you know. But I mean, that's kind of what the halflings are in Blood Bowl, but they get squished. They're little guys and they get squished a lot. But yes, my name is Dreadbread. This has been the watch along for AdeptiCon. One day I do hope to go there. I don't know when. Like I said, usually when AdeptiCon always happens, it never aligns with the stars, and I'm never able to go because I get tied up with work and lots of other things in my life. One day I do wish to go. I wish to go greatly, whether it's either over here in the US or pop over there in the UK and be like, hello, I am foreign, but I like your Warhammer stuff. I'm definitely not, you know, here to throw your tea in the harbor, like we did a couple of years ago. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dreadbread. Thank you so much for popping on by. If you know where you, excuse me, my throat's giving out. I don't know why it's giving out, and I'm sorry if I talked over bits that you really wanted to hear, or if I didn't talk a whole lot. There are points that I was trying to take in, and it just absorb. But if you know where to find me, and don't know where to find me, I will fill you in here in a minute. Let me just grab everything here for you. Obviously, you can find me over here on Twitter at dread_bread. You can find me, or that's my Twitter and also my Twitch. I always mean to say Twitch, but I always say Twitter. I don't know why. It just happens. I do have a backup channel over on Rumble. I know Rumble is kind of like the exile place to go, but once some people tried to kick me off of YouTube, bully me off of YouTube, I decided to make a Rumble just as a backup plan, just in case anything like that happened again. I would have some content over there. But these are all the links. These are all the places that you can find me at. Hopefully I did not miss anybody's comments, because it did say I did reconnect to my chat room just now, which is not good. Oh, is this not? Let me do this again. Oh. Okay, no. Chat box is working. Last time I had issues with the chat box not working, but there's all my stuff that you can find me. It'll all be in the description as well, and I will see you all later. My name is Dreadbread. I keep saying that I'm tired. I keep going to